It's a delight for me to be here this morning, and we're continuing our sermon series on stewardship. Pastor Reed assigned me this, so I'm here because he asked me to be. A couple weeks ago, I had a conversation with my neighbor Rick, and because there was a sign on his front yard, his house is for sale. And I thought, oh no, have we been a bad neighbor? I'm sorry, that just kind of went through my mind just about every day, 2 or 3 times a day. And Gary knows who I'm talking about. Rick will walk with the little dog Charlie, and we'll wave and smile and have conversation. And as I was talking with Rick, I made the comment because of all the stuff that's been going on, nationally, internationally, globally. I said, man, we are living in a mess. And Rick agreed because I said that to him because he said, if the house sells, that's fine. If it doesn't, we just put it in his hands. And when he pointed up, that's when I said, man, we're living in a mess. And he said to me, you know what? He may have to send a flood and start all over. Yeah. And that gave me a thought about that old Negro spiritual that said, God gave Noah the rainbow sign, no more water, but fire next time. That's God's plan. He is going to start over. Going to be fire next time. And the Bible is clear in 2 Peter chapter 3, but the day of the Lord will come as a what? Thief in the night, in which the heavens will pass away with a great noise, and the elements will melt with fervent heat. Both the earth and the works that are in it will be burned up. God gave Noah the rainbow sign. No more water, but fire next time. So we are living in unprecedented and uncertain times. The hour is late, and the crisis is great. We are standing in a divided house. Our national house is divided. The world community is divided. There's nationalism versus globalism. The left hates the right while the right mocks the left. Capitalism versus socialism. Progressive versus traditional. Republican versus Democrat. Secular versus Christian. Do you sense this? Are not we living in this divided house? And such division is just not political or cultural or ethnic. It can happen within our church, our schools, and our homes. How then? How then shall we live in such a house? Don't you feel what I feel? Don't you pray for the rain? The prophet has spoken, and the message is plain. Fight the good fight of faith and receive your reward. Fight the good fight of faith and receive your reward. And what is that good fight of faith? The old hymn says it this way: only trust him. Only trust him now. He will save you. He will forgive you. He will lead you now. Trust him and his word, no matter what others or the world around you may say, which leads me into the stewardship of his temple. You see, a steward is a manager. That's a person who's responsible for controlling or administrating all or part of an organization. Steward is the custodian. That's someone who keeps the facility neat and clean and in good working order. A steward is a guardian, protects and defends someone, something, or some idea or value. And lastly, a steward is a caretaker, looks after the stuff. In other words, takes care of the things that need to be taken care of. And so let's just look at that scripture that we just read in 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verses 19 and 20. In fact, read it with me. You can look on the screen right there. It begins by saying, or do you not know that your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit, who is in you, whom you have from God, and you are not your own? For you were bought at a price. Therefore, glorify God in your body. That first phrase, or do you not know that your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit? A temple is a place where God is worshiped, a place where heaven comes down and meets with humanity, a place where God is willing to present his presence to humankind. Temple of the Holy Spirit. You can't see the Spirit, but you can feel it like the wind and its effect. By the way, God doesn't put an unholy spirit in you. That's what the devil does. A counterfeit spirit that moves you further and further away from the being God wants you to be. The enemy moves you from holy to unholy. God moves you from unholy to holy. Do you not know you're not your own? For you were bought with a price. The enemy of all souls says that's not true. You are your own. It's your body. You can do with it what you want. God is a dictator. He violates your freedom, which is why the popular culture chants, my body, my choice. Well, that's half true. It is your choice, but your body is not your own. It's God's. He made you and he bought you with a price. If you choose to ignore that you are the caretaker of his temple, God will not stop you from making those decisions. But you will experience the results of your choice. God doesn't stop anyone from choosing to be furry, trans, or them. He will honor your choice, but you will not experience the fullness that he wants to give you in your life. And I believe that God wants you to be healthy. It is true that health is wealth. My personal journey has led me to believe, to understand, that health is a three-legged stool. A three-legged stool. By the way, those of you who appreciate it, several of you in the congregation here this morning, when I was sick and came home from the hospital, I see Joel and Jolene. You guys came to my house. Jaden, Mark, Donna, you came up on the porch. And one person, Devon, could you just move that chair right there for me, that in chair? It was one person in my neighborhood who came 2 or 3 times a week. Sometimes, maybe even more. Just set it right on the other side of the screen. We're going to have a little conversation here with my friend. And that was Dr. Gary Lanston. Gary, why don't you come up here, take that microphone with the red cap on it. And as we were sitting on the porch, and I'm there, my wheelchair, oxygen. Gary's a retired ER doctor. So he wanted to know all about my medical situation. In fact, sometimes, Gary, he'd bring his blood pressure cuff. He'd bring his stethoscope, want me to breathe, listening. He's checking on all kinds of stuff. And we had a lot of interesting conversations. In fact, I consider Gary a good friend of mine from those times that we were on the porch talking about all kinds of stuff. Did you know Dr. Gary Lanston went from being a bank robber to medical doctor? You didn't know that, did you? I'm not making that up. In fact, he wrote a book with that for the title about his life story. What a miracle of how God has worked in his life to move him from prison to a hospital doctor. So Gary, why don't you just introduce yourself a little bit and just give us a little bit of your background, and we're going to go to the three-legged stool in just a moment.
Well, Phyllis knows me from way back into grade school where we went in Vienna Junior Academy. So she knows the story.
It's true, right? Okay, thank you. You just know the story. All right. We got that clear right away. Thank you, Phyllis.
So yes, that was an unusual experience in my life. Actually, I say this and people say, what? I tell them that I would have never became a doctor if I hadn't been sentenced to 15 years of imprisonment in the state penitentiary in Baltimore. Okay. Me and a friend of mine who was a PK, you know what a PK is, okay, robbed this bank, and we got caught, and we were sentenced to prison, and I got a 15-year sentence in prison. And while I was in prison, now I had finished 2 years of college with a C average. In fact, I graduated from high school with a C average. I was not a student, a scholar. Okay. So in prison, they gave me a job working with the prison doctor. And in the process of working with him, I had a choice. I would see the patients with him. He would dictate it. I would transcribe it and get it to the medical secretary. He would see patients for 4 hours in the morning. I would dictate, get it to the secretary by 3 o'clock, and that was my job. And then he gave me a choice. He said, now you can go out there in the yard with those criminals, or you can stay in here if you want. Well, I prefer to stay in there. So I had nothing to do other than to read his books. And so as I began to read them, I found them fascinating. So I said, I didn't think about, I just found them very fascinating. But I had no hopes of ever becoming a doctor. But then something happened, very unusual, that to this day no one could explain, neither my lawyer or anybody else who was in the law enforcement. My judge, the judge always has control over your life, my judge decided to reduce my sentence from 15 years to 5. This was after 6 months, from 15 years to 5, and suspend 4.5, and he set me free. Okay, I said, well, if God can do that, and I wanted to get in medicine, I don't think you can't stop God from whatever he wants to do. Okay, so I felt that, well, even though everybody says it's impossible, you can't get into medicine, I went after it, and that's a whole other story because I said no's all the way along. In fact, the medical schools I applied to wouldn't even send me an application. They said, we don't take convicted felons. And Loma Linda was the same. They would never send me an application. I had to get some extra help to get that, and that's the end of the story. I mean, that's how I got into medicine.
That's part of the story, right. We're going to fast forward.
Yes.
So we're on the porch talking, and I'm learning all this stuff. Isn't that interesting? Very fascinating. He wrote this book. I probably shouldn't say this, but if you want to purchase it, you can. It's a real interesting story of God led Gary through this whole process. So now Gary's here, and he retired from being an ER doctor.
Right.
Go ahead and give a little brief history on that.
Okay. I went into medicine, and when I went to Loma Linda, they changed from a 4-year to a 3-year program, and it was a little scary. Everybody had to really study hard. A fourth of my class couldn't pass the boards at that time. I managed to get through the boards, and when I got through, my class in medical schools usually finish in July, and then you start your residency in August. Well, we didn't get through until September, so there was no residency to have. I wanted to go into internal medicine, but I did find a place to go into family practice, so I went into family practice for 6 months, and I wanted to teach people how to live better, and it just didn't work. People come to their primary doctor for a piece of paper that will make them feel better or get over their illness, and they were not interested in health lectures. So I got a little disinterested in doing that. I had moonlighted during my residency, so I went back to the emergency room, started working in an emergency room. 43 years later, after working in an emergency room, I retired at age 81. Okay, so now I didn't get into medical school until I was 30, so after 43 years of emergency medicine, I decided to retire, and I came back to where I had graduated from high school, Shenandoah Valley Academy. Okay.
So that's kind of, you can kind of get the whole picture, amen? So Gary has some incredible stories I learned on the porch about ER, but this is one thing that we're going to talk about this morning. Health is a three-legged stool. It is a school in a sense. And in my conversations with Gary, we're just going to talk about the first leg, diet, the second leg, exercise, and the third leg, what do you think it is? Rest. Oh, okay. So let's just look at this diet. Let's go back. We call this the Genesis diet or the Garden of Eden diet. And so we go to this verse here. Read it with me. And God said, see, I have given you every herb that yields seed, which is on the face of all the earth, and every tree whose fruit yields seed. To you it shall be for food. And then after the fall, we also include this in Genesis 3:17 and 19. Again, read it with me. Cursed is the soil for your sake. In toil you shall eat of it all the days of your life. Both thorns and thistles it shall bring forth for you. And you shall what? Eat the herb of the field. In the sweat of your face you shall eat bread. And so if we kind of break this down, the Genesis diet says first, every tree whose fruit yields seeds, that would be fruits. And every tree whose fruit yields seed, that would be nuts. And every herb that yields seed, that would be grains. Now, Gary shared something that I found interesting because the last one is every would be fruits, and the last one is the eat the herbs of the field. That's vegetables. He pointed out something very interesting about Eve, how she had to get breakfast. Let's think about this, okay? When they're in the Garden of Eden, what did they have to eat? What did Eve have to do for breakfast?
Now, before they were kicked out, Eve had a hard time making breakfast. All she had to do was walk around and pick fruit off a tree, nuts off a vine, grains, and rub them together, and that was breakfast. She never had to bend over. She never had to pull things out of the ground. Wow. Okay.
But after the fall, God said you need to eat vegetables, and we know those are herbs of the field or the ground. Well, let's just talk about this a little bit, Gary. Trees that yield seed, that's fruits. I've heard about antioxidants. What can you tell us about fruits and antioxidants?
Okay. We have, just to emphasize this, what causes us to get ill, cancer, and die is free radicals. What can protect us from free radicals are something called antioxidants. Antioxidants only come from fruits, vegetables, and grains. If you feel like you're not getting enough free radicals, then eat more meat. Okay. Okay. Free radicals, most of the free radicals we have are due to our own body's metabolism. We also get it from polluted air. All the air we breathe anymore is polluted. By the way, down here in the Shenandoah Valley, I don't know if you appreciate, the air quality down here is about twice as good as it is in the Washington metropolitan area where I was raised. All you have to do is look at the weather and they'll tell you what the air quality is, and it's usually in the 20s and 30s. Up there, it's usually in the 40s and 60s. That's bad air. Okay, so one advantage of living down here is that. The other advantage is your lifestyle. You're not working in a industrial area that kicks a lot of pollutants into the air. So now, antioxidants, like only come from fruits, vegetables, and grains. I have to tell you that I see enough young people around here who could actually add 25 years to your life just by eating the right stuff and doing and exercising. It starts really between 30 and 40. If you wait until you're 50, you'll add some years to your life, but you're not going to add 25 years. Health is a three-legged stool. Each one of them, and it's three legs because any aspect of health that you don't take care of can make it an unstable stool, and you'll crash and burn. All right.
So connect this with the free radicals.
Okay. The free radicals are nothing more than a molecule that is missing an electron, and an antioxidant is a molecule that has an extra electron. So when they run into each other, the antioxidant just gives the extra electron to the unstable molecule, which is a free radical, and it becomes neutral. All right. free radicals in your cells lead to the death of a cell, which leads to the death of the tissue, which leads to your death. So it protects you from dying. All right. And again, if you want more free radicals, all you have to do is smoke, drink alcohol, or eat a lot of meat, and you'll get lots of free radicals. Okay.
Well, tell us what are some of the superfruits that have these antioxidants in them.
Okay, now when you get to the substances that give you most of your antioxidants, they are fruits which have a color, and they are vegetables that have a color. The reds, maroons, dark-colored ones, they're the ones that are loaded with antioxidants. You need 800 to 1,000 what they're called ORACs, which are oxygen absorption capacity molecules, to get rid of the free radicals that you come in contact with all the time. I'll give you an example. Elderberries. Now, when we talk about how much quantity you eat, it's always in 100 grams, which is 3.5 ounces. So 3.5 ounces of elderberries will give you 14,000 antioxidants. You only need 8,000 to get rid of all your free radicals. So all the way down the line, and when you get to the berries have about 9,000, which gives you more. So all you have to do is eat 3.5 ounces of fruit a day, one of those fruits, and you will clear the free radicals out of your system. So that's where diet comes in. That's just one of the legs. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Isn't that interesting? Now Gary loves to do research. That's what I learned as we were talking on the porch. In fact, he still does a lot of research. So let's talk about the trees that yield seeds. What about the nuts? You told me that nuts can protect your heart.
Yes, you actually can reduce your likelihood of getting a heart attack by as much as 30% by just eating 3.5 ounces of nuts 3 times a week. They are, by the way, nuts are composed of primarily fiber, protein, and there is some fats in nuts. The fats in nuts actually lowers your cholesterol, doesn't raise it. Okay, so just by eating nuts alone, you can reduce your risk of a heart attack by up to 25 to 30%. 3.5 ounces 3 times a week.
So then, what about the polyphenols that are in the nuts?
Polyphenols are a very powerful form of antioxidants. Actually, you'll find them in nuts, you'll find them in fruits, you'll find them in grains, you'll find them in vegetables. Nuts have a lot of them. So that's one of the reasons that you will live free of a heart attack for a much longer period of time. So like I say, you'll find them in all 3. All right, what are the best nuts for you? By the way, peanut is not a nut. Okay. No.
Sorry.
Does anybody know what peanuts really are?
A legume.
Huh?
A legume.
Yeah, they're legumes. Those are in the vegetable field. They're part of the vegetables. We have fruits, vegetables, and grains, and they're one of the vegetables. They're the ones that are very high in protein. Now, as far as just getting a good protein diet, and by the way, as you get older, you used to think that as you get older, you need less protein. Actually, that's not true. As you get older, you need more. You actually need a gram of protein for every kilogram of body weight over the age of 60. 30 to 60, you don't need that much. But as you get older, you need more. Okay.
So what are the best nuts then? We know peanuts. We got that one.
Okay. Actually, they're all good. I tell people, what nuts should I eat? Eat them all. Take the ones that you like the taste of the most. Walnuts actually have more value to you because they actually give you some protection from developing dementia. But all of them are good. All of them have what you need to protect your heart. The commonest cause of death in the United States is heart disease, and they give you that protection. Walnuts actually give you something to help reduce the risk of developing dementia. They're all good. And I tell people, eat the ones that you like, okay? Don't just eat peanuts, though. By the way, peanut butter is a great nutrition. It's a good source of protein. People say, oh, peanut butter is a jelly sandwich. That's actually a good meal. Okay. As long as you don't have too much jelly in
Yeah.
there.
Okay, what about, we're going to move to the grains now, the plants that yield seeds. So there's a plant protein that's found in grains.
Yes, the grains are really also an excellent source of protein. There are 10 different types of grains. People get concerned about gluten. Gluten is only in 3 of the grains. They're in wheat, rye, and amaranth, I believe. So the rest of the grains, there's 10 of them, are free of gluten of any kind if you have a problem with gluten. So what is the best grains to eat? Believe it or not, oats. And why is oats the best grain to eat? It tastes the best. Okay. If you're going to eat, you don't want to just force yourself to eat things that don't taste good. So part of a healthy diet is eating things that also are good for you and also taste good. All the grains are beneficial. Wheat is the most used around the world. Rice is the second. Third of the world's population gets all its protein from rice. That's China and India. Wheat is the most used grain of all of them.
So it also has fiber in it. The importance
All
of fiber.
of them have fiber, yes.
And then, so what would you say are the best grains? You kind of already told us that, but I think there's one more that you talk about with pancakes.
Okay, fiber can actually protect you from 10 different diseases, and they are on the top 10 of the bad diseases. The 3 or the 4 worst causes of death are heart disease first, stroke second, cancer third, and fourth used to be accidents. Do you know what the fourth common cause of death is now? No, prescription medication.
Whoa.
Okay. Now, well, you say, wait a minute. You mean the prescriptions that my doctor has given me can kill me? Well, sometimes it can, yes. But the big prescription medication are opiates. Mm-hmm. And opiates have lowered the overall longevity. In America, it used to be in the 80s, now it's down to 77 because it kills about 500,000 young people every year. Overdoses on opiates, and fentanyl being the worst.
Mm-hmm. So the best grain. You still didn't tell me
The
about
best grains is buckwheat. Okay.
Ah.
Okay. Now, buckwheat. Now I'll tell you. To me, I don't want to advertise a restaurant around here, but there is one in Tacoma in Newmarket, the Southern Kitchen, that makes buckwheat pancakes with blueberries. You're not going to get a healthier meal than a buckwheat pancake with blueberries in it, loaded with antioxidants, and the blueberries are loaded with fiber. They have to mix it with, you can't just take pure buckwheat and make a pancake. You can, but it's tough. It's not that tasty. But you mix it with something else, it's very tasty. And it is nutritionally one of the soundest things you can eat.
Okay, so we're coming down now. We're still on the first leg, and that is diet. Plants of the field vegetables. They're antioxidants in vegetables. You
Right.
referred to that. And here we have the cruciferous vegetables. This is something you love, isn't it, Gary?
Yes, there are 4 groups of vegetables. Each one are important, and you should have one of each one at least every day. Cruciferous vegetables protect you from cancer, and they can even treat cancer. Okay. They're not my favorite vegetable, by the way, unless, I don't have any use for, I shouldn't say.
Well, just say it because it's, we can relate to it.
Okay. Brussels sprouts, okay? Does anybody in here really love Brussels sprouts? Good. The only way I like cabbage of any kind is in coleslaw. Cooked cabbage just doesn't do a thing for me. Okay, but all of the cruciferous ones are very effective in preventing and even helping you if you do get cancer, get over it. The other ones, which some of them are cauliflower and broccoli. Now, I don't like cooked vegetables, but I like cauliflower you can eat as a grain, and it's really good. Broccoli you can eat raw, and that's good too. You can even eat string beans, almost any vegetable you want, you can eat it raw. Mm-hmm. cooking it makes it tastier because you put oil in there, and oil makes everything taste better. So, but those, and asparagus, believe it or not, the only cooked vegetable I like is asparagus, and that is loaded again with things that fight cancer as well as antioxidants, and they all have protein in them also.
We just listed some of those super vegetables. Isn't this interesting? Very fascinating. So we're going to move to the next leg, the benefit of exercise.
Okay, now I have to tell you something up front. Is there anybody in here that does not know what a blue zone is? Do you know what a blue zone is? It's where people live to be 95 to 105 average. People, the average person there lives to be 95 to 105. Now, living that long, unless you're healthy, is no fun. Okay, if you're 100 years old and you can walk and chew gum at the same time and count above 10 without taking your shoes off, then it's not a bad life. Okay, if you can't function physically or mentally, it's no fun. Okay, these people all could do that. All right, and they combined three things that we already talked about: exercise, diet, and rest. And by the way, when I first started studying diet, I thought that by far, diet has to be the most important of the three. Then I found out it's not. Exercise is more important than diet. Okay, and then I found out something very startling within the last couple of years.
Just wait.
Okay.
We'll get to that. Yeah.
Okay,
Just
we'll
wait.
get to that. All right, so let's get into exercise. What are the benefits of exercise? All right, now, there's tons of research on this. The biggest one was 120,000 people that they studied for 30 years and came up with a formula for exercise. Now, you're not going to like this, but let me finish explaining it all, and then you won't feel so bad about it. They said you need to do 450 to 600 minutes a week in exercise. Okay, now you want to break that out a little bit. An hour of exercise a day, 7 days a week, gives you 420. Okay, an hour and 10 minutes will get you close to 600. So minimum exercise is at least an hour. An ideal exercise would be at least an hour and 15 to 20 minutes. Ideally, probably 30 minutes, because if you do an hour and 30 minutes, you're going to, even in 6 days, you can make it to 600 minutes a week. Okay, now what does that do for you? Okay, amazing what that will do for you. All right, one of the things it does, people say, well, I got to lose some weight, I need to get an exercise. No, you're wolfing yourself. If you eat a slice of pecan pie, which is 750 calories, you know what it takes to burn that off? You'd have to walk or run 10 miles. Okay, if you get out and run a 10-minute mile, which is kind of a fast jog, and you do that for an hour, you have any idea what you would burn? Maybe 400 to 600 calories. You cannot exercise off what you could put in your mouth with a spoon and fork. Okay? However, exercise dampens your appetite so you're not as hungry as you used to be. And you get some benefit because it continues to burn a little more calories over the next 24 hours. Exercise also, they found, people who exercise alone will add 6 to 10 years to their life, just with exercise, even if you don't eat right, even if you don't get the rest you need. Each one of these legs gives you 6 to 10 years additional life. You'll always get additional life once you start into the program of diet, exercise, and rest. If you get to mean, if you start between 30 and 40 and get into do all three of them, you will add about 8 years for each one to your life expectancy. That's 25 years. Life expectancy in the United States is 77. Add 25, you get 101. Boom, you're a blue zoner. Okay. By the way, anybody that makes it to 95 is a blue zoner. All right.
So
I'm 85. I got 10 to go.
there you go. What about the 3 types of exercise?
All right. Now, I love this. Okay. There's aerobic, anaerobic, and isometric and isotonic. Aerobic is when you exercise and you are able to breathe in the amount of oxygen you need to keep on exercising almost indefinitely. Anaerobic is where you really train for some sport, or you get out there and run as hard as you can, and you're going to get an oxygen debt, and you can't do that for much more than a half hour to an hour. And then there's isometric and isotonic. You know what that is? That's lifting weights. And people who do that usually have better physiques. They look better. You know, they have muscle structure. Sad but true. They don't live any longer than anybody else. You have to do aerobic exercise to increase your life expectancy. However, people who do lift weights, they look better in a coffin. Okay. Now, so the exercise you need, and they also discovered that, and I found this to be really true, exercise where you can get out and run and do things like that needs to stop around 60. Some people can push it to 65. Because after that, you're starting to wear your joints out a little bit, and you'll start getting arthritis and other problems. You can get the same benefits of exercise just by walking. Okay, now, is there anybody here who does not have an iPhone? Okay, you all do then.
Or a smartphone, right?
Yeah,
Any smartphone.
that will tell you what how many steps you take a day, and even how fast you do it, and even your stride. Okay. The type of exercise that is recommended by science is minimum, okay, of 7,500 steps a day. Maximum, 10,000. Now, I go for the maximum every day. My wife goes for 12 to 14,000. I think go for it. Sometimes I'll do it with her, but generally speaking, 10,000 steps is all you need to get the maximum benefit of exercise, just walking. But every day. Now, people say, well, can I do it under different, can I do 15 here, 15 there? No. Here's something very interesting, scientifically proven, that if you exercise for 30 minutes, you get about 80% of the benefit of it. If you exercise for 28 minutes instead of 30, you only get about 50 to 60% of the benefit. If you exercise for an hour, you'll get 100% of the benefit. Okay. So you get 60, you're up to 70 or 80 if you go over 30 minutes, but 30 minutes is, for some reason, a magic number. So you get out and walk, and 30 minutes of exercise usually will give you, because most people walk between 2.5 and 3 miles, or 2 miles to 3 miles a day, 30 minutes of exercise will give you at least a mile. And you'll get 60 to 80%, but go for 100%. Okay, it's not that hard to walk for an hour. Okay, I walk with my dog every morning for 2.5 hours. Somebody's got a hand up back there.
What if you can't walk that far? Is there other exercises you can do?
Oh, yes. Okay, and if you can't walk, there is an exercise you can do that is extremely beneficial, and it's not hard. It's expensive, though. An elliptic machine. You know what an elliptic machine is? Doesn't pound your joints, is not hard on you. You just kind of glide back and forth on it. And you also get coordination with your hands while you're doing it. And you can do that. And that is just as good, and sometimes it may be better because you're also exercising your upper body as well as your lower body. Mm-hmm. So now people say, what about a treadmill? Well, treadmills are boring, number one. To sit there and walk. And I recommend what I do. I have a little gym downstairs, and if it's bad weather, I can get on my elliptic, and I have a TV, and I can put a DVD in there and watch my favorite movie. And most movies out there are not worth watching, but there are a few that are really good. Okay, or I can watch Doug Batchelor. He has some really good stuff while I'm exercising, and time just floats by. So, but walking is ideal. It does two things. You're breathing good air. In the valley, there's good air. You're getting full exercise. And you also run into people. Do you know the best thing you can do for your mind to keep from developing dementia? Talking to somebody. Do you know when you talk to somebody, that's great. That's the heaviest strain on your brain there is, the most exercise your brain can get. I want you to think about it. When you talk to somebody, you're watching them. And you're reading their expression. find out whether you're irritating them or making them happy or they're just listening. You also have to pay attention to what they say, and then you have to find out, what am I going to say in response? A whole lot of mental activity going on just by communicating with somebody.
I'm going to tell a story on this. Is it okay if we talk a few more minutes? Okay. So Gary and Janet, they walk in the park in Newmarket. We live in the same neighborhood. And also, I don't know if some of you know Clarence Williams. He shared with me a couple of weeks ago, is that he walks in the park, and while he was walking, well, Gary and Janet talked to the pastor from the Smith Creek Baptist Church right there in Newmarket. And I guess the pastor shared with Gary that he was having high blood pressure, and Gary told him, beets. You eat beets, it'll lower your blood pressure. Well, here now, a couple weeks later, Clarence Williams and Carol Copenhaver, they're walking, and the pastor of the Baptist church must have known that he was an Adventist, so he stopped. He said, hey, do you know that doctor? And Clarence was trying to process all that. He said, well, tell him, and when you see him, that I've been eating beets and my blood pressure is lower. So that walking and talking, that's what I'm saying, is really very, very beneficial. Well, Gary, we're going to move on, and we're going to talk about the most important one. Can you believe it? Of all three, this leg on the stool of health is the most important.
And this is something I just found out in the last 5 or 6 years where science has proven it. Rest. Now, most people think of rest as sleep. It's not. Okay. By the way, if you go for a walk late at night, you will sleep better. Rest. What was the last thing that God did after creating human beings? Okay. He knew something that they didn't. Okay. What science has found out is if you can really rest. Okay, what is real rest? Let me tell you what real rest is, and then you'll see what I'm talking about. Real rest is taking a day. We choose to take Sabbath because God said that's the day is the best day to rest on. It really, scientifically, it doesn't matter which day you take, but take one day a week. Forget about all the junk that's going on in your life. Forget about the fact you can't pay your bills. Forget about the fact that you're going to have an amputation of your leg because of diabetes. Forget about all the stuff that's in your life that works on you and causes stress. Just forget about it. Go and spend time talking to people you love and care about. Go to a meeting like church, okay? Read, go for a walk in nature, and don't worry about a single thought all day long. Now, you can't do that to begin with. It takes work. But once you can, my wife says, I got better at it than she is because I don't really worry about anything anymore. She says, we just got a big tax bill. Well, okay. She says, what do you mean, okay? I said, today we're not going to worry about it. So if you can do that one day a week, you untie the knots in your brain that's causing stress. Stress wears you out and kills you, okay? Stress is a commonest cause for developing dementia. It's the commonest cause for wearing you down. It'll take 8 years out of your life just because of stress. Whereas if you can get rid of the stress for one day a week, you can add 6 to 8 years, 6 to 10 years to your life.
So that would be one of the benefits that you're just talking about.
Yes.
Very good. And you've already stressed the importance of one day a week. Isn't this fascinating? Yes. Do we have a moment? Does someone have a question you want to ask Dr. Gary before we conclude here this morning? Yes, Christine.
What if you would sit on an exercise bike and ride that? Would that be good exercise?
Yes, yes.
I have an exercise bike at home.
There you go.
How long should I ride it?
Ideally, an hour, but at least 30 minutes at a time. Okay, here's the other thing about the exercise. You have a heart rate, your normal heart rate. Now, the normal heart rate, they said is normal. It's not normal. Most of the things that are said normal in the United States is not normal. It's average. There's a big difference between normal and average. They said the normal heart rate for a male is 72 to 75. Normal heart rate for a female is 80 to 82. No, that's average. It's not normal. What's the normal heart rate for a male in good health. It's in the 50s.
Mm.
Okay.
The resting heart rate.
Huh. Yes.
Resting heart rate, yeah.
Yeah, the resting heart rate is in the 50s. So whatever you do, you want to push past your normal heart rate, whatever exercise. If you're not making your heart go a little bit faster, you're losing some of the benefit of exercise. Okay, do you know people who do Ironman, train for the Ironman? You know what the Ironman is?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You know what their average heart rates are? In the 30s. Okay. Now, a Harvard cardiologist made an interesting study, and he said everybody has a certain number of heartbeats. Okay? And if you can lower that, your heart will last longer, which means you'll live longer.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if your heart's running at 75 and you exercise, and exercise will bring it down, and it'll actually resting rate will be slower. The 23 hours that your resting rate is slower gives you extra beats. The 1 hour that you're exercising will give you more beats, but the 23 hours overcompensates for the more beats you have, so you'll have less beats. And in time, you'll lower your heart rate. Now, my resting heart rate stays between 52 and 54 because I've continued to exercise all my life, which means just on the basis of that, I should get at least another 8 years out of it. And I've already passed, 77 is longevity in the United States. I'm 85. So, by the way, just a little side card, if you manage to make it to 80 without any major diseases, you have a 50% chance of making it to 100. But you don't want to be 100 unless you're healthy. Okay.
Right. Anybody else have another question? Great question.
220 minus your age. This should be the maximum heart.
Okay, yes, he's right about that. It's more than that, in fact.
But my question is going to be, are there any dangers in going over that so-called maximum?
Okay, I'm glad you asked that question because it's based on averages. All right, now, my heart rate, because of my age, I'm not supposed to go over about 120. I frequently get up to 140 or 150. Now, scientists said, okay, now maximum heart rate for any person is 220, and you should never go more than your age minus that 220. And then they said, and to be safe, you should only do 80% of that. Okay, so I'm way over that. The reason I can get away with it because I've done it all my life. Okay, so I don't have a 85-year-old heart. I'm more like a 55 or 60-year-old heart because I continued to exercise all my life. So I can get up there. I find I can't get over 160. What happens when you do more than that? Very simple. I see them in the emergency room all the time. When a person goes faster than the maximum heart rate, do you know what happens to them? They pass out. Okay. They don't die, but they do pass out. Okay. I never will forget, I had a lady whose heart rate dropped too low. And she would come in, her heart rate was running around 40. And she would take a step, and she'd make a step. And then as she took the step down, she almost sunk to the ground because her heart rate would drop a little bit. So you have to have an average heart rate. Too slow, too fast is bad. But healthy, a healthy male should have a heart rate in the 50s, a healthy female in the 60s. But they look at averages, and average doesn't tell you it's normal.
Yes, Joel.
Oh, sleep? Okay. Good question. What is the average amount of sleep you should get every night? Oh, it's well documented scientifically. Okay. And there are exceptions. Now, there are some people who sleep 4 or 5 hours a night, and they're fine. There's some people who have to sleep for 10, 12 hours a night. Most of it only needs 7 hours. In fact, if we get less than 6, it's usually harmful. If we get over 8, it's not beneficial. 7 hours gives you maximum benefit of sleep, providing you dream. When you dream, you get in the extraocular eye movement, REM sleep, and that's when you resolve many of the issues of the day. And people who take medication to sleep are not helping themselves usually. If you're going to take anything to sleep at night, or tea or chamomile tea. Any other questions? It doesn't mean if you have to sleep 10 hours to feel good, that doesn't mean that's bad. Okay, I'm just telling you scientifically, say all you really have to have is 7 good hours of sleep. And if you can get by on 5, that's good because you got more time to do things.
Is there a better time of day to exercise?
Actually, scientifically speaking, the best time is towards the end of the day, just because getting into an exercise, doing your exercise at the end of the day, gets rid of a lot of the stress in your life. If you're really, okay, this is for anybody, if you're really upset about something or mad at somebody or whatever is really bugging you, if you get out and walk as fast as you can for about an hour, you won't be near as well, you won't be upset anymore. It just takes it away. So the best time really is in the evening. Okay. Now, hard exercise, when I go out and run, I don't advise people to run late in the evening because they not only get the benefit of the exercise, but they release adrenaline in their system, and it's harder to get to sleep with that. But the average person, if you don't, if you're not out running and jogging real hard, the best time to do it is in the afternoon or evening. Mm-hmm. Now, I do it in the morning and the evening because I got a dog that has to walk. So, but usually our evening, we do it twice in the evening. We do it once in the morning with the dog, and then we do it twice. We take the dog for a walk, and he doesn't have the energy. He'll only walk about a mile and a half, and then we find that we're a little short on our steps, so we'll go out. And lots of times we're walking at night. However, if you're walking at night, carry a flashlight and wear white clothes. Okay,
That's right.
That can be dangerous out there with dark clothes.
Well, we got one more question. Yes.
Isn't it critical for sleep that the hours before midnight are far superior than after midnight?
The critical part of sleeping is really when you can resolve the issues of the day, wherever you hit REM. Now, frequently you can hit it early, and some people don't hit it until late. So it's when you hit the REM, and sometimes it's usually your first sleep, which is before midnight.
Yeah.
Okay.
Very good, very good. My own testimony. If I wouldn't have had some of these legs in place before I got sick, I wouldn't have come through. And so that's my own personal testimony. I wish that I could be better at the exercise part right now. I wish that my lungs were functioning better, but I'm just grateful every morning, every day that God has given me a little breath. Yeah, so thank you so much, Gary. And by the way, tomorrow morning, we're going to do the same presentation at the Trinity United Church of Christ in Timberville. And Gary has been teaching a class at the New Market during Sabbath school time, and I always call it How to Postpone Your Funeral. That's his title, but I just advertise it that way. So I've just found my friendship with Gary to be so informative and helpful. Thank you so much.